Nvidia just showed their new RTX Spark chip, and while they're mostly talking about AI and laptops right now, there is one part of the story that could be huge for the future of handheld gaming. And that is not the only thing happening today. Valve just added a new Steam Machine welcome tour to the Steam backend, which could be a major clue that new hardware is getting closer, perhaps even this week. And we also got a fresh Steam Deck and desktop client update with more Steam controller fixes, and Steam's Summer Showcase Hub is now live right as Summer Game Fest week begins. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Welcome back to Steam Flow. This is my channel where I cover Steam, Steam Deck, Steam hardware, and gaming handhelds. If that sounds like your vibe, consider subscribing to the channel. And let me know right away in the comments, would you actually want an Nvidia powered Steam Deck style handheld? Yeah, I know the Switch 2 exists, but let's forget about that, something that's more open. Now, Nvidia announced the RTX Spark at Computex this week, and I want to talk about what it actually is before getting into why it matters, because the marketing around it is mostly AI stuff, and I know how you feel about AI. After all, it's the main thing driving up prices on anything tech and gaming related right now, including the Steam Deck, but buried underneath all of that is something that could matter a lot for gaming handhelds. Now, the RTX Spark is not a traditional APU. An APU, like what's inside the Steam Deck, is a single die with CPU and GPU integrated together, sharing memory. Now, the RTX Spark is a multi-chip module, a Blackwell RTX GPU with 6000 CUDA cores, the same core count as an RTX 5070 desktop GPU, connected to a 20-core ARM-based Grace CPU via something called the NVLink chip-to-chip interconnect. Think of NVLink here like the technology Apple uses to connect its CPU and GPU dies in the M-series chip, but this is Nvidia's version. It has very high bandwidth, very low latency between the two chips, and it's not one die, but it behaves like one in terms of memory access. So they're targeting laptops initially, then mini PCs. Now, why does this matter for handhelds? Well, right now every major gaming handheld, Steam Deck, ROG Ally, Legion Go, they all run AMD, and they all use FSR for upscaling, and none of them support DLSS. The only handheld that supports DLSS is the Nintendo Switch 2 because it uses a custom Nvidia Tegra chip. And FSR is good, but DLSS has consistently pulled ahead just a little bit, and RTX Spark could change that equation for future handheld devices. I'm not saying that particular chip, but the idea about that chip. If it ends up in a handheld, and Nvidia is promising wattage figures from up to 80 watts down to the low single digits, which is very much handheld territory, though Nvidia was careful to say they're making no comments about handhelds. If that were to happen, we'd be getting DLSS 4.5 on a handheld, multi-frame generation, super resolution, ray reconstruction, and that's a pretty big gap over trying to force a MacGyver version of FSR 4 on our Steam Decks like we do nowadays. And now all that sounds really cool, however there is a pricing reality check here. Nvidia's DGX Spark Mini PC, which uses a structurally similar chip, costs about $5,000. And that's not a handheld price. Actually, it might be in a few more months. That could be the handheld price. The question of whether Nvidia or a partner can get an RTX Spark handheld to a reasonable price point is hard to answer. Battery life under gaming load is also completely unknown. Nvidia hasn't published power draw numbers for real-world gaming scenarios, and that's the number that matters most for a handheld. I think the bigger question is, does this force AMD's hand? And probably yes, eventually. Now, AMD has been x86 exclusive on the consumer gaming side, and that's been fine because everything in the PC gaming ecosystem, Proton, Steam, even Windows, it runs on x86. But Apple has already proved that the ARM chip can do serious compute, Qualcomm proved it works in Windows laptops, Valve developed an entire translation layer for ARM and are about to showcase how that works with the Steam frame, and now Nvidia is bringing ARM into gaming performance territory. And Valve has already been laying the groundwork for this. Proton 11 added ARM64 support earlier this year, and whether a future Steam Deck 2 ends up on AMD ARM, Nvidia RTX Spark or something else entirely, I think the direction of travel is pretty clear. x86 is not the only path moving forward anymore. Now, Nvidia is only talking about Windows right now. SteamOS support for a brand new ARM chip that's also an APU it's probably not going to be instant, and AMD's open source GPU driver situation on Linux is already strong. I don't know if you guys try to use Linux with Nvidia, but it's a pretty hard thing to do. So an AMD ARM chip would probably have a smoother path to SteamOS than Nvidia would, but that's all future speculation. For now, RTX Spark is a laptop and mini PC chip launching this fall on Windows, and I'm really excited to see AMD's answer to this. They have done ARM chips in the past, mostly server stuff, but if this Nvidia chip delivers on the promise, it could start a whole chain reaction of ARM wrestling. You see what I did there? Now, does an ARM Nvidia chip in handheld territory excite you, or does the pricing and Linux uncertainty make it a non-starter? Let me know down in the comments. Now, moving on to the second story. So earlier this week, people spotted a Steam Machine welcome tour added to the Steam backend. I also shared this on a post. This is the onboarding experience that boots up when you first set up a new piece of hardware. The setup wizard that walks you through the device before you ignore it and download your entire backlog. And the reason this matters is the pattern that we have with this. Now, Valve did the exact same thing with the Steam controller. The welcome tour for the Steam controller was added to the backend on April 2nd, I believe, exactly 25 days before pricing and availability were announced, and the hardware launched just a few days after that. Now, the tour itself confirms a few things. There's a micro SD slot, which of course we knew, and Valve built two versions of this tour, one for the first time setup and one that lets you manually replay the tutorial later. It also walks through updating the Steam controller firmware during initial setup, which suggests the two are being treated as a connected out-of-box experience. If the pattern holds, a release date announcement lands somewhere in late June, and people are speculating that an obvious stage for announcement is Summer Game Fest, which is on June 5. Now, Geoff Keighley posted a teaser in the form of a GIF of Steam coming out of a manhole cover. And Geoff has a good relationship with Valve, but he also did a bunch of similar stuff for the Game Awards back in December, and nothing came of that. Now, it could also coincide with the Steam Summer Sale, which is around the 20th or 25th of June this year. Now, a welcome tour in the backend doesn't automatically mean hardware is about to ship, and the other thing hanging over this is, of course, pricing. Valve originally targeted Q1 2026, then pushed back after the memory market crunch, the same shortage that just pushed Steam Deck OLED prices up significantly, and that's still in play. So even if an announcement is close, the price is still the real question mark, and perhaps a deal breaker depending on what it is. But the signal is there. Summer Game Fest is this week. We'll see. Hopium is at an all-time high. Now, moving on, Valve pushed the client update to stable yesterday, which covers both the Steam Deck client and the desktop Steam client. What's in both? Steam controller gets a firmware update for a potential charging issue, LED dimming for the Steam controller is now available in the settings, and trigger dead zoning on the lower range has been reduced. Remote Play fixed double input when the Steam controller is connected via the puck, and they reverted changes to trackpad momentum tracking that caused a dead zone around the edges on the Steam controller trackpad. There is a Linux fix for gamepad emulation breaking on Steam controllers, and the per device serial now shows correctly on the puck info page. And there's also a network performance bug fix in downloads. Some deck specific changes, they improved layout on the pair controller screen, and the Legion Go joystick LED fix is in the deck build. So if you're on Legion Go and your LEDs weren't behaving, that's now been addressed. It's really nothing groundbreaking, but the Steam controller fixes keep coming every day, and that's pretty great. And my final story for this video, Steam's Summer Showcase Hub is now live. Link will be in the description if you haven't seen it. It's your central page for all the publisher live streams this week. So the PlayStation State of Play is today at 2 PM PT, and Summer Game Fest kicks off on June 5th. PC Gaming Show is June 7th, the one to watch for PC first titles, strategy, survival, and hardware news as well. And Xbox Game Showcase is also this week. Now, the Mix Showcase already aired yesterday to open the season. There's been 60 plus indie games, including Breathedge 2, Hoa 2 and Toxic Crusaders, and a lot more, so check those out if you're interested. And for Steam Deck players, this is one of the better weeks of the year. Verified status news, demos dropping, wishlists going up, and given the Steam Machine welcome tour timing we just talked about, I think Summer Game Fest on June 5th is worth watching closely. If Valve is going to make a move, this is a good window for it. And let me know, are you hoping for a certain game review or trailer to be shown this week? Let me know down in the comments. That's gonna be the news for this video. Steam Machine signals are pointing somewhere and June 5th might be the moment. The client update keeps Steam's controller iteration moving. Nvidia's ARM chip is something to watch even if it's not touching our ecosystem yet, and it's gonna be a pretty exciting week for some game reviews. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. If you hated it, leave a dislike and let me know what I can do to improve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.